Hello and welcome back. Another episode of Your Drone Questions Answered. I'm John Dickow with the Drone Launch Academy, here to find the answers to your drone questions. Now, today's question is a first timer. It's how are drones used for lost pet searches? So today I have Ryan Stotsky. He's the owner, operator of 0 to 400 Drone Services. One of the many services they offer is pet services, but he offers some more. So I'm going to just toss it over to you, Ryan. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about 0 to 400 Drone Services and what you do there.
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Stotsky. Been operating 0 to 400 drone services for a few years now. Kind of started out in FPV. My mentor said, hey, find a niche and get into it. So, I started looking into the FPV route. And being here and in the Atlanta area, there are very good top-notch FPV pilots, like some of the best in the world. Mr. Steele being one of them. I just don't have the funds to constantly be fixing, repairing. As much as I like to do all that stuff, I don't have the funds to be constantly fixing, repairing FPV drones. And so looking into it, I was like, all right, well, LiDAR is an option. Well, that price range of LiDAR stuff is quite expensive. You get into surveying territory, and it's not something I have a background in. So the next step, obviously, for me was, all right, let's look into thermal. And I saw that drones were a little bit more reasonably priced. Training was reasonably priced as well. So jumped straight into getting ITC level 1 thermography certified, looked at the drones on the market, and the M30T had came out. And so I was like, all right, I want something that will last for many years to come, that won't need to be upgraded soon, that's going to last a long time. And that's the drone I ended up landing on, was the M30T.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, I understand you're basically like a one-man operation, aside from a little bit of help sometimes with your wife. Tell us a little bit just about that. What is everything you're doing at 0 to 400 Drone Services?
Yeah, so I run the company, manage all the books, sending out invoices. I do the flying of the drone. When we do roof inspections, do the data analysis of the roof before I get it onto the roofer. And then if anybody has a lost pet, they text me directly. I deal with them, trying to find out the location they were last seen and get pictures of them and kind of assess from there if it's something that we can do. Because we will tell people, based off the time frame, that it's just not statistically likely. We are fully transparent when it comes to this. The one thing about the lost pet search side, where almost have to essentially talk yourself out of a job, saying, look, this is not feasible. There's limitations here. There's limitations there. And even then, still 95% of the people who call me still want to do the search anyway, because they want that 100% peace of mind that their animal is not just hurt right behind their house, just out of view, just out of range. And they go stumble across them, a month or two later, just
Sure.
wondering. So we take that, out of their mind on, okay, they're not nearby, they're not close, and we give them that peace of mind. Or, ultimately we do find them, which is, also a possibility as well.
Interesting. Interesting. You even get word about, say, a lost pet or a job comes your way. So, kind of just take me through a little bit about what a typical call is like for a
Yeah.
lost pet.
Yeah. So either they'll call me directly, or I'll get a text saying, hey, the pet was lost. And I'm like, kind of said to go through that steps of trying to determine whether, it's something we can do. Now, obviously, being north of Atlanta, if they start getting a little too far south, we have Hartsfield, Atlanta, and a lot of other small manned airports. So we have to get their address to even verify that we can fly. So that's the number one thing. Now, I know my area pretty well. So as long as they're north of Highway 92, I know for a fact there are no manned towers near me at all. So that's an automatic yes, we're good approval. If it's an area I'm unsure with, maybe an hour or two drive away, I may have to do a little bit more research to figure out whether it's flyable, or if I can get auto approval through Lance. So if it's all good and get the auto approvals, I'll get the picture of the animal. So I have for quick reference while I'm flying. So I don't have to ask them every time that, hey, is this your dog or is this your cat? I know right away that, hey, when I call them over for them to verify, I've already verified that, yeah, that is them. Unless it's just a generic black cat, that could be anybody's, but most of the time it's a very unique looking animal and it's very easy to pick out. Once I have all that information, we generally have to wait until about an hour before sunset for thermal to be useful. So a lot of these calls come in the middle of the day. They want me to come out right then and there between the 9 to 5. Even if I wasn't working, I would still have to tell them, like, look, as much as I would like to come out and search, most of these animals are going to be in the forest around here in Georgia. And with the environment thermally loaded, just the animals will blend right in. So we have to unfortunately wait until that environment has cooled down.
So, obviously, thermal is kind of the main capability you need in order to do this job.
Yes.
I'm curious what else is required for the job. I'm thinking a lot in terms of drone thermal, obviously. Is there any other requirement, additional accessories? And I'd be curious to know what kind of drone you fly for this job.
Yeah, so I fly the M30T,
Mhm.
And the spotlight on it for the LP-12 is the one I fly is not, or just a spotlight in general is not required, but it definitely limits your time frame that you can search. Now, I did fly for a while without a spotlight, and I was having to use that like golden hour and a half before sunset, so I could still see down to the ground, but I didn't need a spotlight. And there was a lot of times where my searches got cut short because the sun went down and I was tracking something, but I wasn't sure what it was and I couldn't verify. So that spotlight investment was absolutely opened up the time frames that I can search, because if I get a call at 10 o'clock at night, I can easily pack up, leave the house, go, and not have to worry about having some sort of external light source. No, I am that light source.
Now, I can imagine with this type of job, and you kind of alluded to it earlier in our discussion where you've talked about how, a client might say, "Hey, you're telling me that our chances aren't good here. We're this is not looking like this could be a successful job, but they still want you to do the job anyways for peace of mind."
Yes.
I can imagine you probably work with some very emotional clientele at times. How do you navigate through that when you
Uh,
are in that situation?
I feel like the confidence I bring when I'm talking to them over the phone, because I've been doing it for about 2 years now. When I talk to them over the phone, it's very confident. I don't get too technical with them, but I show
Mhm,
them that I am knowledgeable in this space. There are some services where they will only tell you the benefits and they will
mhm.
wash over the negatives and will not tell you anything negative about the service. I'm kind of the opposite. I will start off with the negatives, like saying, hey, this it's not perfect, it's not x-ray, there are very
Mhm.
likely places that are too thick to search. They may be hiding underneath a car, a trailer, under a log. There's a million places they could be. But if they are in that area and there's a small gap in those trees, the heat source will get out and I will pick it up and I will navigate that drone until I get confirmation of whatever that heat source is or is not the animal, and then we'll move on.
Okay. I can imagine it's probably pretty rewarding when you're on a job and you're able to find a happy ending for this client, find their pet in good condition. That's got to feel good, right?
Oh yeah, it's rewarding twofold, because the first time that adrenaline dump hits is when you spot them and the customer says, "Yes, that is my dog or my cat," and they're just over the moon. Well, that's
Yeah.
just hurdle number one. Hurdle number two is actually getting them, because at the end of the day, finding them means nothing if you don't actually recover them. So we can't help with the recovery, obviously legally, trying to man the drone and I'll walk through the forest and all that. So
Mhm.
we do require the customer to have somebody able-bodied to make the trek that the pet is familiar with that they would likely approach. And we do talk to them over the phone, guide them through using the spotlight to light their way. And then when they get close enough to the animal, we will then either light up the animal for them to find, or we will light them up and approach the animal. And a lot of the times, especially if they're in heavy wood, dense forest areas, they don't want to move. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're not going to, try and leave.
That is really interesting. You can't go retrieve the animal yourself, but you can actually help guide the person, whoever is taking on that job, and help guide them to the animal's location using
Oh,
your drone.
absolutely, and it's actually almost a requirement, because even though I can drop a GPS pin and point directly at the animal and drop a GPS pin, Google Maps GPS is still 20, 30 foot accurate, which is good enough for getting to a house, but it's not good enough for getting to an exact location. And I have a few videos where they're trekking through the woods, and from my view, they look 4 or 5 feet away. I'm like, how can you not see them? And I have to tell
Uh-huh.
them, like, hey, 45 degrees to your left, 2 feet forward, keep going. I don't care what's in front of you, keep going forward. They're on the other side of whatever it is. And they
Yeah.
break down that tree, they break down that bush, and they go, oh my God, there he is. Or we had one where the dog was blind and deaf, so you couldn't call for them. They weren't going to move. The drone wasn't going to bother them. The light wasn't going to bother them. And he walked right past him, overshot 20, 30 feet. And we had to turn him around and say, hey, you overshot him. And guided him back over to Leo, that dog.
Wow, that's very interesting. I can imagine there's some part of that. Listening to that sounds like it would be kind of exciting and fun to guide somebody, but I understand it's a very serious job that you're doing here, and there's a life on the line and
Yeah.
emotions as well. That has to be sort of an intense.
No, it's very much when we have searches at night. Like, I don't sleep at night for the most part, because there's just so much adrenaline going. Everyone's happy. It's just one of the best feeling in the world of just being that person's light at the end of the dark tunnel and getting them, their family reunited whole.
Very cool. That's super rewarding, and that's a nice segue to what is, pretty much my last question. You are doing work that many of us in the Drone Launch Academy community would love to do, and that is, starting your own business, doing something meaningful while making money with your drone. Not even when it comes to just pet rescue or roof inspections. What advice would you have for some of the DLA members just starting out? Maybe they just got the drone, they've just gotten their certification, they want to put this business together. Just based on the experience you've had, what advice would you have for them?
I would say try and find a need in the area that's not being serviced. There may be some areas where there are no aerial photographers for real estate.
Hmm.
No, that there may be areas like that. No, there are some areas where they have copious amounts of dog trackers, pet trackers that may flood the area. So drones may be fought in those areas. But in my
Hmm.
area, we have zero ground pet trackers that are remotely close. There's nothing like this, even remotely close in the area, other than just volunteers helping to put signs out and
Hmm.
things like that. So if you don't have anything at all remotely close like that in your area, you can fill that need, that niche, and that desire for people to want to help. Like this drone service is not for every situation.
Hmm.
There are times where it just is not going to work, but it's an extra addition for people who want to be proactive in their dog search. So, Facebook posts are great, signs are great, social media posts, walking the streets, getting a search party together. Those are all great. Dog trackers as well. A lot of those things are passive. Like you are, with the exception of the dog tracker, all those things are passive. You're waiting for someone to call you and hope that their sighting is your dog and not just some random, stray. And
Yeah.
hopefully they're not, mistaken or they send you in the completely wrong direction. No, so this lets somebody who has 100% desire to find them, no matter what, short of calling in the Marines to search for them, this gives them an active role of somebody showing, hey, we care, we're trying to help, we're trying to find them as well. There's a thing like with Facebook posts, likes and shares, things like that. Those are,
Hmm.
great and all, but they don't give somebody a sense that people genuinely care, because it's very easy just to hit the share button. But it's a wholly
Yeah.
different thing to have somebody come out to your location and get boots on the ground. Like maybe your local neighbors are willing to do that because they know you, they know the dog, but
Hmm.
trying to get some random person that's 35 minutes away to come help you do that, nobody's doing that, and no one's going to do that. So that's, we'll drive as far as we need to, as long as it makes sense to do so, to help people out. Like that's what I decided to do.
Well, and you mentioned at the start of this interview is that your mentor told you to find a niche, and that's exactly what you did. You did research to find that niche, and I've got to say, great job, because you found a niche that not something I've heard of too often, but it's also something that people just care about so much. You said it yourself. I agree. My pet's a part of my family, and if I lost that pet, and even if things weren't looking good, I would want to make sure I've done everything I can to find that pet and see if he's okay. And so it's a really a service that people would want and are looking for, and not go halfway, go 110%. And I think your
Yeah.
service really helps people do that.
The amount of times, and especially starting out early, where people said, "Man, we wish we knew about you sooner." Like just, and that's why the word of mouth has been so important, and is why it's taken so long for it to kind of get going. Is just the word of mouth. It does take time to happen, but once people have that information in hand, again, it's a very unique service. Don't forget about it. Like there's lots of people who post on the local page saying, "Hey, I remember seeing the lost pet, who's the lost pet search or the lost drone person," in the group, and we'll get 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 tags in an hour span from people.
Ryan, I just got to say congratulations for starting up a successful business and also doing something that is meaningful and really does give back to its community. And thank you for taking the time aside here and talking to me and sharing your experience, because I really do think it's valuable for the Drone Launch Academy community. Ryan Stotsky, he's the owner operator of 0 to 400 Drone Services. Check it out. You can check out his website, 0 to 400 droneservices.com. Very cool work. Ryan, thanks again for coming on. And hey, if you got a drone question, we can help you find the answer to it. You can go ahead and submit a drone question over ydqa.io. We'll see it. We'll find someone to answer it. But if you're a part of the Drone Launch Connect community, that is a great way to get involved with drone education. It's a great way to submit a question for YDQA. It is just an awesome community where people are sharing their experiences, they're answering each other's questions, they're sharing each other's successes, their failures, and they're even selling some of their stuff for great prices with their fellow Drone Launch Connect community members. So if you are not a member, feel free to register. You can go on to the dronelaunchacademy.com. You'll see a little tab there that says Drone Launch Connect. Go ahead and click that. It's an easy button to register. Very quick way to get involved. We'd love to see you there. Please submit your questions. Until then, we'll see you in the sky.